Welcome to Franchising Stronger Together. I'm your host, Red Boswell, president of the IFPG, International Franchise Professionals Group. We're here to talk everything franchising and how franchise leaders have responded to this crazy virus situation we're all living through together. So we're joined today by a great friend and certainly a franchise leader, franchise influencer, franchise legend, shall we say, Mr. Keith Gerson. Keith is president of franchise operations for FranConnect. Hey, Keith.
Red, great to catch up with you. And you are a good friend. Thank you so much for your friendship.
Brown noser too.
Yes, I am.
Hey, man, excited to have you on the call today. You have such a unique perspective on this, on franchising in general with hundreds and hundreds of clients at FranConnect. Before we jump right into what you're seeing happen out there, how are you and your wife doing in Virginia?
Thank you. Thanks for asking. Doing great. I can check the 3 boxes. I'm healthy, I'm emotionally sound, and I'm employed. So I'm better than I deserve to be.
Emotionally sound, we might debate that, but anyway. So, buddy, you have such a unique spot with your purview on franchising. Help us understand as we dive into this topic and talk about where we're going in the future. Help us understand who FranConnect is and why you have such unique perspective.
Thank you. FranConnect is the leading franchise management platform. We've got over 800 brands that are using our system on behalf of approximately 150,000 franchisees today. What we do through technology is we help franchisors grow their unit expansion, increase their unit revenues, improve unit profitability, and reduce franchisee terminations and cancellations. A position I've held here as president over 8 years now, and so that gives me a nice balanced perspective, not only having all of the other franchisors and access and understanding into the data, et cetera. I also have my own 40 years of experience as a franchisor. So my heart is going out right now to franchisors and particularly the franchisees that so many of them are struggling.
So Keith, I mean, we could talk all day about this. You've got so many franchisors that you work with, that you hear from. Could you give us some insights on, so we all know we're on the backside of the big COVID virus issue, the pandemic. Now, there's plenty of debates of, will we have a second rise, et cetera, in the fall? But help us understand the franchisors you're working with, that you talk to day in, day out. What, any insights, man? I don't even know where to start asking you these type of questions.
Yeah. Well, I've said this on a number of webinars that I've been on, which is we're all in the same storm, but we're absolutely in different boats. I mean, there are some that are very, very hard pressed and units still shuttered, not open for a business, and others that I'm seeing plenty of them that are absolutely thriving right now. You know, recession-resistant businesses that are open for business. They're selling franchise locations. So it's different strokes to different folks, and in some cases, because it's asymmetrical, it's different strokes for same folks.
So are you seeing any advice, any best practices, any insights you can give franchisors as we exit this crazy time? Yeah,
I think the first one that comes to my mind, Red, is that I think that, and I'll start by saying I did a webinar the other day, and I live polled hundreds of franchisors that were on this call. And in my live polling, I asked them where and what was their level of readiness in terms of reopening. If I'm not mistaken, I think that I had 76% of the respondents saying that they were absolutely ready, most assuredly ready to reopen again, and then somewhat ready picked up almost everybody else. There was, I think, just a couple of percent that said that they're not ready at this point in time. But a little later on in my webinar, I went ahead and asked another live polling question, in which was I asked the franchisors who were present if they had either a written playbook or a digital playbook for reopening. And I've got to tell you, that it was exactly the other way around, that I think that it was somewhere around 8% of franchisors that said that they had playbooks. So that has me a little worried or concerned that, people, it's kind of like ready, fire, aim, rushing out into it, believing that they're just going to be able to open up the other doors and it's going to be same old, same old. And yet I just saw in the news where there was a franchisor in the hair care industry that had an employee that came to work that they were positive through coronavirus, was actually presenting symptoms, coughing, et cetera, and exposed everybody in that shop, which those types of things, if you look back historically, can impact franchise revenues on a good day, by 10% and better. We think about what's happened to Chipotle and Jack in the Box restaurants and those that had suffered, the indiscretions of the time. But now what does it mean? I mean, think about the complexities. If I'm in a physical location, if I had an employee who physically opens the door for somebody, which we would normally say is a great behavior to have, but does that now put them within a closer proximity where customers feel uncomfortable over social distancing, or signing of credit card pads or using pens at the counter, et cetera? So many things to think about. So that would be my one concern right now, is to whether or not people really are as ready as they think, and advice that I think it's the time to really sit down and start thinking about every single moment of the customer journey and where now we're coming into contact with them.
Okay, so Keith, franchisors are listening. They're going, wow, you're right, Keith. I don't really have a good game plan. My game plan is one paragraph of be careful, social distance, make sure your employees aren't sick. I mean, where would a ZOR go to get this kind of a real game plan of how to A to Z get lunch? Now, each industry, each business is a little different, but what advice, where would we go to get that?
Well, there's two types of answers I'm going to give you. One of them is going to be the answer that I would give when I was also a franchisor and going all the way back to the 1970s before there was the technology that we enjoy today. So I'm going to start just with what everybody can do, and then I'll give you a technology response to that as well. So the people that are closest to the customer oftentimes are going to be the franchisees that make up your franchise advisory councils. And I think that if you were to organize, and I would keep it, to a tight group of 6 to 8 just for manageability purposes, but sitting down and literally just breaking it down into each and every moment of truth along that journey, and start with telephone calls that we might get in terms of, are you open for business? Or email inquiries that come in, and breaking that down to where and how do we as an organization exude confidence while also absorbing fear. I'll tell you that I called a franchise company when I had an issue with plumbing in my house. And when I called on the telephone, they did a phenomenal job of letting me know that they had air scrubbers in their vehicles to make sure that the equipment that they were bringing in was going to be properly sanitized, that everybody that was coming in would be, in fact, distancing themselves, wearing gloves, putting boots on their feet, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time I was done talking with them, I had absolutely no apprehensions whatsoever. So for me, it started with that call, but just literally breaking it down. Okay, what's next? People are pulling up on your parking lot. What is it that they're going to see, and how do you go ahead and allow people? There's this thing called surrogate behaviors that when I go back all the way to my McDonald's restaurant days, in which we used to know and try to teach our employees that people judge the healthfulness of your restaurant and the quality of the food by things like the grease stains that are coming out the back door on the way to the dumpster, trash at the curb, those types of things that make all the difference in the world. So on and on it goes. I mean, just break down the steps and then do a great job of being able to document these things and use, turn to the book, a checklist manifesto. It doesn't mean that you have to literally document 100% of the steps, but you're going to go ahead and find the ones that really are standing out, the 20% that are going to create 80% of your results, and make sure that those are done in kind of like a checklist format. That's one thing. Now, Red, I'm going to flip to the technology side of it, which is by saying that there are going to be some challenges that franchisors, according to my data, were on average only able to see their franchisees on a once per year to twice per year basis in the field. So I'm excluding conferences, which also, if they're happening, they're going ahead and they're happening virtually at this point in time. So if franchisors are able to go out very infrequently now and inspect what they expect, that's where the technology comes into play. So for example, at FranConnect, we have a technology that we've introduced called Optimize, and it's for the purpose of actually having, based on what the system, the analytics are showing, or the challenges that that franchise is going through, gives them an opportunity to go ahead and say, okay, and it generates for them an automated checklist that says, on the basis of what's happening with your food cost, on the basis of what's happening with your NPS scores, these are the things that you need to do. And then there's a system that's built into it for follow-up. So you can still do it the way that I described initially, but there's also technologies out there that can help in terms of effectively managing field ops and specifically inspecting what you expect with the advent of these technologies and artificial intelligence.
Buddy, I had no idea that FranConnect went that deep. Well, it is a great time. I mean, when better to be in franchising? If you're going to be an entrepreneur, being out on your own, having to figure all this out, figure out all the best practices, figure out the safety measures to get back live would be an absolute nightmare. So again, love why we do what we do. The systems, the accountabilities, the best practices across hundreds, if not thousands of individuals makes all the difference in the world. You know, a lot of folks on this call didn't know you guys provide so much on the ops side. I'm mostly familiar in my background, certainly, with the FranDev side.
Sure.
You no doubt, I love your sales index report that you come out with each year. Have you, and maybe a little early, but do you have any insights about what is happening in FranDev over the, go back 90 days, 60, 30, 20, up to today and beyond? What do you see the cycles going through?
Yes, so the Franchise Sales Index that FranConnect puts out, this is the 5th year that we've put it out. And congratulations, by the way, to IFPG, because IFPG continues to do a phenomenal job in terms of our rankings based on conversion rates. I don't even like separating you guys from what most call brokers. You and our leaders all are in this business that I'm going to call franchise referral consultants. And you're doing phenomenal. Your conversion rates and that of the leaders are very, very high. I'm going to say easily 4 times as high as the average conversion rate of all lead sources. So great on that front.
Thank you.
Now, the franchise index is looking at the 2020 index, which I've been doing some short webinars around, is actually nearly a 60-page document that's going to be out next week. Okay, so we're getting ready to publish that now. So it is for the entirety of 2019, but I'm also tracking outside of that index, and I will be coming up with an update here shortly in terms of what's happening today. So I can only speak to anecdotally what the trends are looking like. So I will tell you that the overall lead flow for franchisors was down and had been trailing for the past couple of years through this last year because of a full employment economy, right? So just, let's face it, the phones were not ringing off the hooks for most franchisors. Conversely, right now, with a 14.7% unemployment rate, and of course, not every industry is going to be able to benefit, if you've got $1 million plus, cost of entry, it's not necessarily going to be the people that are unemployed at this moment in time, by and large, though they're out there. But what I'm seeing, however, is franchisors that are reporting that this is probably the best that they've seen in some time in both the quality and the quantity of leads that are being generated. And I've done, again, a lot of polling and a lot of surveying around this. There are some that have what I'll call stinking thinking that believes that one, there's not going to be any quality out there, or two, that now's not the time to be offering an opportunity because we're going to appear to be tone deaf if we do that. But that's not the case at all. Those that are not viewing themselves as, having to be apologists, but see themselves as actually having a viable way for people to be able to reverse their misfortunes from having been laid off and getting into business perhaps now for the first time, something that they thought of, is actually really going to be enjoying some of the best days in franchise development that we've seen. And I'm seeing it right now. Many franchisors that are just knocking it out of the park. So I just say it's a matter of perspective. If you think you're not going to sell, you're not going to sell. If you think it's possible, you will. You just have to, just like anything else, make sure your messaging is on point. Make sure that you're being sensitive in terms of the way that you follow up on people. And these are all things that can be effectively coached on how to do that.
Amen. We probably 2/3 of the industry franchising, those opportunities are job replacement opportunities. And I've been seeing for probably 5 years now that the biggest hurdle, the biggest obstacle to franchisors getting a bunch more deals is the job market. The job market was so stinking good. We were losing more deals to great jobs than anything else. And now that's pretty much off the table. And so franchisors are seeing leads start picking up. Now, there's some still struggling big time, but even through the height of this pandemic, approximately, because I've been speaking to Zors all day long through it, approximately half of our members have not been affected in a significant way to the negative. Some, probably 15-20%, are actually improved significantly in key sectors. The delivery services, the home and business services where you don't have to deal with a lot of people, the sanitation and cleaning related services. So there are certain sectors that have really benefited through the pandemic, but then even others who just haven't had that huge downturn on FranDev that others have experienced. Now, on the consumer side, it's a whole different world than on the FranDev side. I appreciate you giving us more insights on that, Keith. So what about, have you seen, you talk to folks all day long like I do. This is a random question. Have you seen any kind of cool stories of triumph? I thought about writing a book because I keep hearing these cool stories of a franchisee came up with this, kind of the whole Big Mac story of a franchisee came with the Big Mac and then it becomes a household name. Any stories we can share with the folks out there? Good news?
Yeah, yes. There's a lot of it going on right now. And the fact is I think that the reset button, which has been pushed for many, many businesses, is helping them to really reassess that maybe the way that they were doing things wasn't the most effective way. And now I'm seeing people like, someone specifically that comes to my mind is Hal Lamb. Some of your listeners will know how he is the founder and CEO of Best in Class Education Centers. And I know that within a period of 3 days, out of necessity, they were able to, for the first time, move away from classroom or face-to-face training and adopt technology to be able to start putting out training curriculum that they were able to do, which I don't know if you would call it asymmetrical training, but where it's a combination of instructor-led and it's the online component that allowed them to just absolutely thrive. And it only took them 3 days out of necessity to actually put this out, put it in play, test it with a few franchisees, and really see that it had merit, something that I think that will probably continue to be a differentiator for them and help them to thrive from here on out, putting them in the recession-resistant category now. So nice. I'm just so happy to hear so many stories like that.
I as well. We could talk all day about the stories. One theme I've been seeing, a significant and very hot sector of franchising are the fitness franchises. And I probably interviewed a dozen fitness-related Zors, and every one of them were like, yeah, we pivoted, we took it online, we're doing remote classes, and I bet you every one of those never stops. Now they're going to reopen. Many are open already in a limited fashion, but just so many people are falling in love with the remote workouts that these stores I'm talking to are going, it's a new income stream. And frankly, there's quite a few folks that are so, I don't know, scarred's a little harsh, but this pandemic has really changed some psyches. And there are a certain percentage of the populace that just aren't going to be interested in ever get it going back if they don't have to in certain ways. And fitness could be one of those where they do it online from now on.
Yeah, shame on me for not remembering the brand that I heard do this, but there was a fitness center brand that is a customer of ours that because their plants were physically shut down, came up with a brilliant idea that they had equipment that was just sitting in these facilities, and they went ahead and worked out a program for their customers to actually come.
Like that? Cycle bar, maybe?
It very well could have been that we're actually making their equipment available. If customers wanted to come pick up that equipment, they could go ahead and lease that equipment, the same that they would have used in those facilities in their homes. So just, brilliant. They're not victims. They're figuring out ways that they're making it work. And all it takes is, like we've said all along, it's the difference of what happens when you start working on your business instead of in your business. And that's affording us this opportunity.
It has, and it's been so encouraging to hear stories of folks who, fitness franchises, again, on that topic, will maybe go virtual, but then reduce their rate by, let's say, 50%. And so many of the members say, no, you got to pay your bills too. We care, and we'll keep my rate the same. Just seeing that over and over and over, hearing great stories of people caring and saying, no, don't reduce my fee, or tell you what, I'll pay for somebody else who can't afford it, who lost their job. That's makes you believe in the human race again,
That's very, very heartwarming for sure. Yeah, and that's why I say this is the great reset. If we want to look at it as the horrific thing that it is. I mean, there's no getting away from the fact with so many losses of life and livelihood, et cetera. I'm not that much of an optimist to tell you that I'm immune to my heart breaking over that. But for many of us, though, if we see it as an opportunity, those that are basically saying, I have been carrying team members on my team that didn't fit the culture, haven't been great performers, but for whatever reason, I'm too busy to deal with it. Who now, I'm not going to say that it was that they terminated employees due to the pandemic, but they've released employees that needed to be in some cases released. And I feel bad for anybody that loses their jobs, but listen, this is for many, they're going to come out stronger as a result. Franchisors are going to be thriving. They found ways to cut fat into out of their business. So they're going to be far more profitable. And just like happened in the previous deep recession, pales in comparison to what we're seeing now. But what happened is franchisors started paying real close attention to unit level profitability. And at the end of the day, if you want to sell more franchises, you need people that are absolutely banging the boards and being profitable as franchisees to sing your praises. You'll sell a whole lot more franchises as a result.
So true. And we're seeing a quality increase now. And in many cases, the ZOR is not seeing some big influx of volume, although we're starting to see that change too. The volume is increasing here as we get out of the height of the pandemic. But I've been hearing probably 2/3 of the folks I interview say they've seen a quality of lead increase. Well, if you're getting 100 leads a month and you're closing 2 deals, and now you're getting 40 leads a month and closing 2 deals, I'll take the 40 over the 100 anytime. You save a lot of time and hassle. And those two, in the 40 scenario, tend to be move faster. They're more risk tolerant. If you're going into the discovery process in franchising during a pandemic, you tend to be more risk tolerant. And as a byproduct of that, tend to have a little stronger financial backbone to be able to support, to be able to purchase, and be able to launch quickly that franchise. So that's been encouraging to see as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're seeing so many examples of that right now, and people are attesting to the fact that there's quality, but there's quantity too. I'm speaking with franchisors that are telling me that right now they're receiving more quality leads and more leads in general than they have in many, many years. So just don't make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's my advice to your listeners.
Well, tell you what, it's we do territory checks. One thing that franchise referral consultants do is territory checks. We check with franchisors to see if an area is available before we present the model to the buyer, to the candidate that we're working with. And so that's a very key metric for us that we monitor often, or really always, is how are we looking on territory checks? Because we as IFPG actually don't know about a lot of deals that happen since we allow the consultant and the ZOR to pay each other directly. So the territory check number for the second half of April, we're talking the height of the pandemic, second half of April, was up 36%. That was
Wow.
Extremely encouraging. Now we haven't seen in the first half of May, we didn't see it didn't go to 80% increase. We saw a fairly similar number as the second half, but either way, that 36%, and this is a 36% increase on, 15 consultants. We have 570 consultants, so these are some significant numbers we've seen increasing. And when you have a lot of territory checks, that's predecessor to a lot of deals coming down the pipeline a couple, 3 months later.
That's right. That's right. And along those lines, Red, now is not the time to be shy. I understand that, if you are cash constrained, I understand that you having to cut back perhaps on your marketing efforts, but now is not the time. Now is actually the time to be doubling down on your marketing efforts with what you have, because you will get a far greater return. And if not now, think about how long it would take somebody if they turned off their lead machine. And now it's like, okay, 3 months from now, I'm going to go back in there again. How long is it going to take to fill your pipeline? You're not going to be doing deals this year,
right,
if that's the case. So,
yeah.
Word to the wise.
Ray Titus of the United Franchise Group, I heard him say, within a couple weeks of probably it was around April 1st, actually, I heard him say, we expect to do 12 months of business in the last 6 months of the year because of the pent-up demand, the honing of the operations and the models in some cases, adding an income stream here, weaning down one here. And he, like so many entrepreneurs and franchisors, are bullish and overly optimistic. We got to love it because that self-actualizing prophecy starts coming together, just like you've said.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I happen to think that Ray is onto something there. So.
Hey, buddy, I meant to tell you too, at the IFA in February, right before the world went crazy, I saw you and you jammed up there on stage on the keyboard. Loved it, and got to see that beard you got going in motion. I said, man, I got to pull me a Keith Gerson and get something happening. So,
well, it's looking good, but in your case, Red, with the amount of gray that's coming in, we may have a new nickname for you. A new color on the spectrum.
White.
Gray.
That's a pot calling the kettle black right there. Or red. Hey, brother. So any closing comments, any closing thoughts, maybe predictions, maybe advice for franchisors out there trying to make the most of the second half of the year?
I would say that the most important asset that you could be working on right now is trust. Trust with your franchisees and building trust with your customers, okay? And there's so much that goes into there because trust may mean something different to me than it does to you, Red, depending upon the circumstance. But I think that if we trust our business leaders, our franchisors, to make good decisions on the basis of the employees that are going to be in these franchises, acting in the best interest of our franchisees, and putting our customers first, we're going to come back strong. There's going to be a lot of brands that are going to have a fairly large share. I was doing some pulse surveys and asking franchisors what they expected was going to happen with franchise terminations and franchise churn. And I would say that the range was between 10 to 20% that could literally fail as a result of this. They were undercapitalized, et cetera. But, build trust. And the way that you build the trust is the way that franchisors have in terms of helping their franchisees when it was time to get their PPPs, together, building trust in making difficult decisions. Like in my own company here, we enjoy a fairly new, beautiful headquarters, but we made the decision that it was in the best interest of our employees to shut those offices down and have everybody working from home. And we're not going to rush it. We're going to wait, and we'll evaluate again sometime in June to see if it's the time is right. But if you think from that mindset, your employees, your franchisees, your customers, they'll come back strong, and they'll have so much trust and confidence in you. You won't have trouble getting back on track in no time.
Amen. Well, trust is built through transparency, through listening, through disseminating data. And whether you're a buyer listening to this or a franchisor listening to this, something that I encourage them all to do is put it in perspective. Everybody just heard you say that through your many conversations across the board, franchisors are sharing that they could have a 10 to 20% attrition happen this year. And there were some gasps when they heard you say that. But what's the norm? Let's put it in perspective. What is the norm? In entrepreneurship, a much higher percentage doesn't make it each year than that. And in franchising, although we're an incredibly stronger model, there's still a natural attrition and a unfortunate attrition that ain't that far from 10% across the board. So,
well, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's right. And I think that those that are experiencing or anticipate that they're going to experience that, or those that might have been focusing on the wrong things. Because again, if you're focusing on the success of your franchisees, okay, if you realize as a franchisor, I will only find my success by helping you as a franchisee find your success, those are the folks that have very, very low attrition rates. And by the way, as you just suggested, the attrition rates in franchisee are fractional compared to independent business ownership. Fractional. Those that go alone, I can't even imagine anybody going it alone right now. Having a network, having thought leadership, people that are transparent, willing, communicating, thinking about and working on your problems 24/7, that's where you want to be right now.
And the franchisors out there that are listening going, yeah, I know I take care of my people, but I got to sell some franchises. Well, guess what? You will never sell another franchise if you don't have great validations. And you get great validations by being transparent, by listening, by helping your people, by focusing on your babies that you have today, not the babies in the future. So you want one, you better do what's right regardless.
Amen. And that's one of the most important metrics out there right now is going to be franchisee satisfaction. And you won't know it if you don't measure it. So there's some advice, Red, that you and I have just come up with together here, which is communicate, be transparent, but ask. Find out exactly how your franchisees are feeling about the support that you're providing, and ask them, what can you do different? What can you do better?
And what's the best franchisee to franchise to sell or franchisee? It's your current franchisees buying additional units. So again, how do you get them to buy additional units? You take care of the units they got today. Keith, it's pretty obvious to everybody we could go all day on this. I appreciate your time. So Keith,
we're not?
Yeah. But,
I blocked my day for you, Red.
We only have 2 more hours.
It's been fun.
Keith Gerson, President of Franchise Operations for FranConnect. I'm Red Boswell with IFPG. We thank you for listening to Franchising Stronger Together. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you. Bye-bye.